to present at this fantastic conference. And today I'm going to talk about quantifying your resilience posture. And I'll give a little introduction in a second. But again, just thank you so much for staying on board here and having this last session in the afternoon here and joining us. So my name is Dr. Bernard Jones. I'm assistant professor at St. John's University in the Collins College of Professional Studies. I teach both undergrad and doctoral courses in Homeland Security, emergency management, and business continuity. And I've spent a good part of the last 20 plus years as a practitioner working in on either business continuity, disaster recovery, or emergency management. So I've been in this space for a long time. I've seen a lot of events over the years, and it's prepared me for my transition from being a practitioner to becoming a professor. I earned my doctorate degree at New Jersey City University in Jersey City, New Jersey, in civil security, leadership, management, and policy. So a lot of our doctoral candidates looked at aspects of security, terrorism, critical infrastructure, and I focused on resilience. I did my doctorate on organizational resilience in New Jersey. Always been intrigued by, why some companies tend to get through disasters and be able to bounce back and do much better, while other companies literally either just can't survive or are not able to face these certain disasters. So always been intrigued by that. What separates those companies from one another? I also, as I mentioned in the keynote address yesterday, I'm also intrigued with emotional intelligence and its kind of connection with emergency management. So one of the things that led me to develop this particular presentation and looking at this kind of postdoctoral work on resilience is, again, what I said a little bit earlier. I've been intrigued by learning what are the factors that determine, whether a company is resilient or not. I was able to talk to some colleagues, talk to different professional groups, and I got connected with a very important group in New Zealand, which led me to study organizational resilience as, again, in my doctoral studies. So this presentation will focus on how organizations address resilience, and it's grounded in two things: lessons learned and practical examples from organizations on how they can better address the resilience. But before you get there, we need to be able to quantify it. The research that I did during my doctoral studies was a kind of an offshoot of research that had been done previously and had been being developed over the years, looking at what are the factors, and we're going to call them resilience indicators. So I'm probably going to say that word a couple of times today. But through this body of work that these researchers passionately went through, they were able to come out with a set of resilience indicators. So so the information I'm going to provide will be based on and kind of grounded on that research. The goal here is to give you some concepts around resilience indicators or resilience concepts. And then, as well as, I always like to give not just theory about these things and what the concepts mean, but over time I've learned from different organizations, I've learned from different research that I've done on how you can do a better job. Yeah, I always like people that join a presentation that I give, I like them to be able to walk away with some helpful hints, some best practices. So you'll have that as well. Love this term, expand your mind. It's a term that my near and dear daughter provided to me when she worked at a radio station during her years at college. She attended the College of New Jersey. And so their tagline for the radio station was "Expand Your Mind," and what that meant was they played a kind of litany of different types of music, different music genres. So I kind of stole that and said, you know what, uh, I know I'm getting in my advanced years here. I'm almost closer to retirement than just starting out, but I've continued to expand my mind on these particular subjects. So, like I mentioned earlier, I spent 20 years as a practitioner. So that's one aspect of this. I'm now squarely located and centered in academia as a professor and as just an advocate for higher education. And then the third is research, which is pretty much what we're going to talk about today. So I'm continuing to do research. There's a term called the practitioner, where you would a person that's I'm sorry, a pracademic is what I wanted to say. A pracademic where you use your practitioner skills and experiences. You weave in a little bit of academia, teaching, creating course content, and then you teach. You're also looking at the research end. So I continue to want to play in all of these different roles. It's still so intriguing for me, and so that's why I'm excited and passionate about talking about this subject. So I always tell folks to continue to expand your mind. So why conduct research on organizational resilience? Again, being a practitioner, I've faced a lot of challenges with helping organizations be not only prepared for disasters, but to be able to deal with them and to be able to respond and recover. So anything I can learn, anything I can research, anything that I can take to to help that mission, to help organizations do better, to be more resilient, is something that I'm excited to learn more about. So that's what led me to how can I learn more about resilience, and better yet, how can I also is there a chance to be able to measure it? Uh, Peter Drucker made the classic statement: if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So during my literature review, for those that know about doctoral studies, you do a literature review to learn what's out there, what's in the literature. And I was so excited to find that there was some, groundbreaking studies that looked at measuring resilience. And that's, I guess that was the, what really, kind of struck it for me to go deeper into this. So why conduct research into organizational resilience? Is there a linkage between different behaviors, different cultures that can explain, again, why one company, one organization is more resilient than another? So to my sheer amazement and I was so happy to see this. Um, Research on how to measure, quantify, and benchmark resilience started back in the 1990s. First real milestone was reached by Larry Malik, who initially developed this organizational resilience benchmarking tool, survey instrument. So I read through that. It had some fundamental aspects to it as far as resilience indicators. Really, really excited to see that, and I wanted to take that even a step further. Scott McManus in 2007 followed up with a long research study that targeted a number of organizations in New Zealand. I mentioned New Zealand earlier, and that's kind of the where I got a lot of my information. I've partnered with a group out there. So they were concerned about looking at disasters that were happening in New Zealand. The Christchurch disasters was the earthquakes was one of them. So these were long, kind of longitudinal case study research projects. But in essence, what they've done was each step of the way, they've enhanced this benchmarking tool. In 2010, Amy Stevenson further refined the tool that was first developed by Larry Malik. And then she used what's called factor analysis to even tighten and make it more focused. And then 2015, this person came along, this Jones guy, and said, oh, wow, let me work with these teams. Let me further understand what they were doing. Is there a way, a chance that I can enhance what's already been done? And lo and behold, I was able to do that by updating portions of the tool. And for you that are into statistics, was able to increase or enhance a particular value that added some, an important enhancement to what was already done. So I was happy to be able to use that information, use that connections, the collaboration with that one group in New Zealand, and was able to enhance the tool and move it forward. Add to the literature, as they say. So essentially, a tool was created, fostered, updated, and that's the basis for what we'll learn, as far as learning these organizational resilience indicators. So I know I've been talking quite a bit here so far. I'm going to turn it over, just a kind of an interactive question here. If anybody wants to jump off mute and respond. So when you think of resilience, organizational resilience, what comes to mind? What makes an organizational resilient? What are the factors that help to build organizational resilience? And here's an example. Here's one of the, there's going to be 15 indicators I'm going to share with you in the next slide or two. And here's one of them. Having effective partnerships is, you wouldn't think this, but that's an integral part of organizational resilience. I think once you think about it, and once you look at the definitions of how important partnerships are, I think you can see how that would play a role in resilience. So Brandy and Terry, I don't know how how you want to do this one, but I always like to ask the group, when I'm talking with them live, if you take that effective partnerships as an example, can you think of other factors, other indicators, just off the top of your head, that you feel that would build or can, that you could see helping an organization be more resilient? See, can we possibly have a 1 or 2 minutes to, and I would just ask people, and they would chime in, and I would make a list, and I just thought it was it's interesting when hearing people's perspectives on this.
And everybody has the ability to unmute right now, so speak right up if you have a thought.
Not going to grade this. This is all fun.
Open communication.
Excellent. Ooh, that's,
if you're willing to talk to each other.
Yep. You're going to get a gold star because that's going to come up later. You nailed one of them. Open communication. Any others? Just think resilience. Think,
Cross training.
Okay. Excellent. I'm making a list. We're going to look back later when I go through the 15 that I studied. And it's just interesting to see if there's any, connections, or if you got any of these.
How about training?
Okay. Let's get a few more.
So I think pre-planning and your emergency operations center's ability, or emergency manager's ability, to think creatively and predict potential issues.
Who's talking here? Heather.
Heather Long from Chico State.
Okay. And I'm sorry, the person that talked about open communication, just your name again, just so I have it.
Mike Bear with Kowali.
Okay, Mike, thank you, sir. Maybe one more, then we'll go further.
How about the ability to think quickly, make decisions quickly?
Okay, decision making.
Agility and flexibility.
Okay. Jilly, like it. Great. Okay. Thank you so much. Again, I know we're in our virtual world here because of the global pandemic, but typically when I'm in a room, I got the big, whiteboard going and things like that, and people are talking about this stuff. So excellent. I love what you've all chimed in with. So that those studies that I talked about from New Zealand and the actual tool, organizational resilience can be measured based on all that work that's been done over that long period of time. It came down to 15 different and unique resilience indicators. And again, I'm smiling ear to ear here if you can see it. Some of the things that you guys just brought up are on this list. So I'm just happy to hear that. But before I begin to dive into the 15 specific organizational resilience indicators, I want to tell you that there's two overarching dimensions. And I think Terry mentioned it, planning. The two overarching dimensions that, again, came out of the research are having adaptive capacity. So an organization's ability to adapt is at the heart of its ability to display resilience characteristics, and planning, the development of plans and strategies, as well as engagement in disaster planning and preparedness. So you're probably thinking that these two make sense, right? How well you can plan ahead of time, and no better group to talk about planning and as we talk to Koali Reddy, that that's in your nature, that's in your mission to help with planning. But planning and adaptive capacity overarching were the dimensions that came out of the research. So as far as the adaptive capacity resilience indicators, I'm just going to go through those here. Leadership. And I'm going to go a little step further into each one, but I'm just going to list them here so we can just continue to stay on time here. Leadership, staff engagement, situational awareness, decision making. Great job, Terry. Innovation and creativity. Wow, Heather, fantastic. You talked about creativity, which uniquely, this is one that no one ever thinks of, innovation and creativity in the same context as resilience. So that was well done, Heather. Effective partnerships, that's the one example I gave you earlier. Leveraging knowledge, and that's, again, the tool set that Koali brings, and then just the different areas you guys touch on, I can see how that's so important to be able to leverage knowledge. And breaking silos. Again, this may be kind of the opposite of staff engagement. You want your staff to be engaged, but definitely you don't want to have silos in your organizations. That's that's a negative, and that's a detriment to your quality of or having to be able to have resilience. And then last but not least, internal resources. How are you able to tap into the resource that you have internally? So I don't want to go deep into this. This is kind of the theory behind, or some of the definitions that drove the researchers to pick these particular indicators. So my hope is that you can see just from the titles of each one how important, how they do fit. And the fact that they've made this list is because they do fit. We've done, there's been a litany of information, a litany of research done. Organizations have been surveyed. Longitudinal studies have been done that have arrived at this list. Again, these are the definitions that kind of support each one of the choices, but just want you to understand how it's just, these are the 15 that made it. And I didn't want us to really get bogged down into all the theory right now. I'd rather go into more of the lessons learned and in the practical helpful hints I can give you to better enhance these things. That's what's kind of the most important part of this presentation. So leadership, staff engagement, situational awareness, decision making. To continue innovation and creativity, staff are encouraged and rewarded for using their knowledge in novel ways to solve new and existing problems and for utilizing innovation and creative approaches. Goes without saying how important effective partnerships are. I've been in so many different disaster events helping organizations to respond, and those effective partnerships were key, that helped to restore, situation, restore things back to normal, and a really important factor when you look at resilience. Leveraging knowledge, critical information is stored in a number of different formats and locations, and staff should have the access to be able to get opinions when needed and be able to tap into that knowledge. Breaking silos, trying to minimize any social, cultural, divisive behavioral barriers. Really, when you think about the word silo, it just in and of itself, how destructive that can be to resilience and how that can just be so counter, to what we're trying to achieve when we're dealing with disasters. And of course, internal resources, having the management and the mobilization of the organization's resources to ensure the ability to operate both, not just in a crisis, but in business as usual. So those were the 9 adaptive capacity resilience indicators. Planning, as we mentioned earlier, there's 4 planning resilience indicators. Proactive posture, how proactive you are. Stress testing your plans. So I know 2 people mentioned training and cross-training. So I can lump that into stress testing your plans. Unity of purpose, and I'll go into a little bit more detail into that. And your planning strategies. So these 4 supplement the 9 that I talked about earlier, but these are the planning resilience indicators that were studied. Unity of purpose. So an organization should have a wide awareness of what the priorities are, with that, how, by following, that would be followed in a crisis, clearly defined at the organizational level. So this brings into a really important point. It brings into, is the organization aligned? Are there a great level of communication and collaboration, communication and cooperation at all levels? Is the mission, is the kind of unity of purpose at the executive level, is that permeating down throughout the organization? So you'd be surprised how that's really important. On is everybody on the same page is, I think, the best way to define this one, all across the organization. How proactive are you? Proactive posture. Is there strategic and behavioral readiness to respond to any early warning signs? So this leads to things like monitoring and having your kind of hand on the pulse of things well before a disaster or crisis turns up. Planning strategies, the development and evaluation of plans, something again, you guys do just a tremendous job with, and then as well as evaluating developing the plans, evaluating them, and just having a place to have plans. I mentioned during the keynote, so many academic institutions just don't even have plans in place. They just kind of put things together as they need to address situations. And are the plans being stress tested? Are you having participation in simulations, in scenarios, in testing to validate and have those plans validated and, of course, updated and enhanced based on changes in the organization. So those 15 that we just talked about are the ones that again, that were part of the research, and I'm going to mention some lessons learned and how we can address those in just a minute. But before I get there, there are three areas or three resilience indicators that were not part of that research that that I have taken on the challenge to learn more about, and I'd like to be able to incorporate that into my research study and research overall on indicators. Communication is one. So, Mr. Baer, kudos to you for bringing that up earlier at the beginning. Open communication is what you mentioned as far as a possible resilience indicator. I could not agree with you more. Communication, coordination, and collaboration. I just think, and again, I'm just basing this on my own experience as a practitioner. These have been areas where I've seen such, I feel that they're so important, and I see where there's a chance to be able to really address resilience if you can address these particular things. So here are my definitions of this. Communication, strong communication is one of the building blocks of a successful organization, necessary if programs in the organization are to be able to implement successfully. Even more so specifically in crisis situations, how important communication is goes without saying. Coordination, a process to establish harmony among the different activities of an organization so that the desired objectives can be achieved. So I mentioned earlier about unity of purpose. So having good coordination within the organization is important. And of course, collaboration. I call it a working practice whereby individuals work together for a common purpose to achieve a defined and common process. So I think these are important to weave in, and more will come just toward the end of our presentation, where we'll have a little activity where we can talk and have a deeper dive into these three particular things. So again, I just think these are really important. I'd love to show this slide because it kind of encapsulates and kind of shows in a picture all 15 resilience indicators that came out of the research in New Zealand. And you can see there's another grouping that they've established. They've grouped a few of these indicators in terms of what they call leadership and culture, and those are the ones on the top. As you can see, right at the top of the list is leadership. Bottom left, there's what they call networks. So those particular indicators, resilience indicators, are shaping how you build better networks. And then lastly, at the bottom right, stress testing plans, proactive posture, planning strategies, unity of purpose, all target the change ready. In the middle, resilience, the ability to survive a crisis and thrive in the world of uncertainty. So great slide. I know it's a picture that shows just how these particular indicators, how they're kind of grouped together for particular, different aspects, if you will. I always like to show this slide and just, again, get people's thoughts on it. So please, if you're taking notes or have some jotting down information, hopefully this is one of the slides and one of the takeaways you'll take from this presentation. So shift gears here. So how do we move forward? I want to give you some takeaways here. I gave you a lot of theory here, and I hope I didn't lose you. I know I'm the last thing between you and a pasta event later. So if you can bear with me for just a little bit more time, I think I want to be able to, again, share some takeaways with you in these next couple of slides, and then we'll go into a group activity. So 5 specific organizational ingredients that I call them to touch on the indicators you see here. I only picked 5 out of the 15. These are important. I've seen over the years: leadership, staff engagement, effective partnerships, situational awareness, and innovation and creativity. So based on that, I've learned from working with the groups in New Zealand talking to practitioners, talking to researchers, talking to other academics, and I've come up with a large list, and this is just a partial set of takeaways I want to share with you here. Ingredient one, be a leader that people want to follow. And that goes obviously centered to the leadership indicator, or the leadership resilience indicator. And you want people to be able to want to follow you. And that is by showing great example, showing true leadership. I think you get so much better out of your group, out of your the people that you're working with, by being that quote unquote leader that people want to follow. Have a team of engaged people, staff engagement. I know this can be tricky. How do you keep people engaged? I like to, I talk quite a bit, but I like to also listen quite a bit. And I'm concerned about what's important with people around me. And I try to turn that around and use that as a way to maintain that high engagement. So having a team of engaged people, I think, again, is important and center to staff engagement. Never heard, I'm not sure if you've heard of this term. Do you have a 3 a.m. friend? What that means is, can you effectively have that phone call, that conversation, send that text message out to someone within your network that you feel is a great partner? I have a couple of 3 a.m. friends, and I have a couple of people that have continually to call me at 3 a.m. when there's issues. So having a 3 a.m. friend is, or set of friends and colleagues, I think, again, helps to develop and maintain and enhance those partnerships. Keeping a finger on the pulse, having situational awareness. I mentioned this during the keynote as well. Staying engaged, staying on top of what's happening out in the world. Back growing up, we used to just call it current events. Are you staying up with your current events? And I think that situational awareness, keeping that finger on the pulse, again, can help, again, maintain and enhance your ability to do a good job in this particular place. And ingredient five, moving to a mindset of constantly learning. And again, I applaud Heather earlier about talking about creativity. I think it's inherent, and it's interesting, and it's something that we humans like to do, is to be creative, be innovative, constantly learn about things. I think that just continues to heighten our awareness around on what's around us. But more importantly, it helps us to be able to build things into our current practices. And innovation, creativity, you would never think that to be, something that would have any connotation with resilience, but it does. So some examples on kind of starting the conversation when you're talking with colleagues around resilience initiatives. Initiate the resilience conversation. So talk about, if you're not already, some of these harder, more stressful things that we're dealing with. We're dealing with a global pandemic. We're dealing with a lot of different disasters, critical infrastructure issues. We're looking at cyber attacks and the like. So don't be afraid to talk about resilience. Just talk about, these types of concepts that I brought up today. Initiate that conversation will only, I think, again, help foster more discussion on it, and then more, just more people be more engaged in it. Take advantage of recent crises. I can't. I'm kind of grinning when I say this, but we got a pretty important and impactful one right on. We're dealing with right now. So continue to like reflect on this, continue to learn from the pandemic, and again, recent crises are important to kind of infuse and have, keep that dialogue going. When I talk to people about resilience, I like to let them think it's their idea when they come up with their, thoughts about how to look at resilience. Let it be their idea. It's not me giving my own perspective on. I've done a lot of this research and looked at the theory, but letting folks, letting them know that it could be their idea, that as far as some of these some of these resilience indicators, I think is a good thing. And I hate to say it, but sometimes don't even call it resilience. Maybe it's a different term. I think sometimes we overuse this particular term, kind of the term, sexy term, if you will, resiliency. There may be other ways to kind of coin it. But again, if we can just continue the conversation, and again, letting it be their idea and not call it resilience, I think is a way to get this thing going. I like the mention of a town hall. Crash the town hall meeting. So organizations, big and small, have town hall meetings. Why not be able to chime in about resilience? Make that a focal point, if you will, during one of these town hall meetings. Gonna go a little faster here, so I think we're getting kind of close to time. Some examples of resilience indicator initiatives that I've seen over time, specifically with leadership, self-evaluation, and actively improving a person's leadership skills has helped with this particular initiative. Capturing both hearts and minds. When I mentioned crashing that town hall, I think it's important to be able to let people talk about some of their challenges, and let them be able to capture both, have a chance to have a dialogue and capture hearts and minds around leadership. Empower your staff to lead during a crisis. I know we do quite a bit of tabletop exercises. I like to say, I like to hear from all parties at the tabletop, from all levels, staff up to senior leadership. So empowering your staff to lead during a crisis will help foster and help enhance leadership and build that crisis leadership team actually as well. How do you develop effective partnerships? Establish mutual aid agreements if you don't already have them in place. Add resilience as a criterion when you're working with suppliers during the supplier evaluation process. Learn more about what they're doing as far as resilience. Organize events, both internal and external, with your internal and external partners. When I say organize events, I'm not just saying tabletop exercises or the like, but sometimes just talking with your internal and external partners will go a long way as far as helping to develop those partnerships. You'll be amazed. The more you can talk to your partners before that disaster occurs, you'll be just amazed, and you'll just be reassured how having those kind of tie-ins ahead of time makes such a big difference. And lastly, I'm a big proponent of professional practices, of standards, ISO standards. And one of the professional practices out of the Disaster Recovery Institute is professional practice number 10, which means coordinating with your external agencies. So there's a litany of things you can do there, best practices on that. But again, developing an effective set of partnerships ahead of time through some of these initiatives will help. Some additional examples of resilience initiatives. Resilience organizations, I mentioned earlier at length, this particular group out of New Zealand. And one of my colleagues, Erica Seville, wrote a book, Resilience Organizations, How to Survive, Thrive, and Create Opportunities Through Crisis and Change. Excellent book. I can't speak enough about it. I encourage people to take a look at it. But in there, she's developed over time a litany of initiatives that she's developed, learned from different organizations. She's encouraged organizations to offer their own best practices and I'm looking forward to another edition, a later edition or updated edition of this book, but I leverage it quite a bit. And I also, I've continued to talk to different groups, different organizations, different professional associations, and I've created my own list. And I enjoy adding to that list, and also helping out Erica with enhancing her list as well. Again, you'd be amazed. We are such a welcoming group as far as giving information, telling about what's happened that's worked well and what hasn't worked well, and that can only make us all much better. So I encourage this particular book. In it, there's 60 to 70 resilience initiatives to share, all taken from years of research experience, and as well as input from organizations. And I highly recommend it to, again, to kind of enhance all that theory we talked about earlier. Here's some really tangible things you can take away and use as initiatives to help with your resilience endeavors. But I always caution, all organizations are different. What will work for one may not work for another. But again, I'm encouraged to see this large amount of initiatives from different organizations, and you can see how some can again apply better to your organization, and maybe some don't. So just encourage it to take a look at this particular text. And before we get to our final stage, I also invite everyone that I talk to about this subject to help me with my ongoing research. For me, excuse me, it's important for me to continue to gather data. That's the part that I really like. So I'd love to be able to take the survey instrument, talk to different organizations, large and small, public and private, talk to institutions, and I would love to then be able to look at that data and see what type of things I can lift from it, what type of things that I've learned from just looking at how different organizations, different academic institutions land as far as their resilience indicators. Do some do better with leadership? Are others stuck in silos? Is there great preparedness? Are they how do they really rate as far as these different indicators? So I always encourage those that I talk to about this subject to, if there's any interest in assisting or wanting to provide, folks that want to take the survey, I'm all ears. And of course, everything's kept confidential. No company names or information of that is everything's kept anonymous. So learning more about organizational resilience will at least continue to help me to grow this list, and to again, to keep going at this, keep looking at resilience indicators and how I can then learn more about them, learn more about what different organizations, how they where they kind of measure, and again, keep this conversation going and this research going. So wow, we're at the 5 o'clock mark, so that's
Don't worry about that, Dr. Jones.
Okay.
We'll continue on. Just keep going.
Okay, I'm sorry. All right, so group activity. So here's the fun part. I was hoping to get here sooner. I apologize. Now I want to take a step back and hear from you. So I mentioned earlier the three new organizational resilience indicators I'd like to explore: communication, coordination, and collaboration. So here's a chance for us to break up into 3 separate teams, where each team will focus on each of these particular 3 new indicators. Want to have fun with this, so please take it in that vein. I want this to be creative and fun. So here's the activity. I want each team to work together. Again, there'll be a team for communication, there'll be a team for coordination, and there'll be a team for collaboration. You'll provide a definition of the research, that particular resilience indicator, and then answer these following questions. How is this an important indicator of organizational resilience? I want you guys to just kind of think about that and again, talk about it and come up with that answer. Then, if you can also provide or cite a crisis or disaster example where a failure in this particular resilience indicator had devastating consequences. Again, targeting communication, coordination, collaboration. And here's the fun part, design and draw a logo depicting that resilience indicator. So again, I hope you all had fun with this. Can you see my screen, the group activity?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, great. So at this point, typically would be in a room, we would have teams, one person would speak as the team leader and go through what they came up with from their teams. And again, in the spirit of this, hoping to have this be interactive, engaging, and a lot of fun. So with that said, I'm gonna go to the next slide. We'll kick it off with team communication. If you wanna go ahead and go through what you've developed and share it with the group, that would be tremendous.
Nice graphic.
That is a Dawn special. I can see that.
Sweet.
No, actually, Dawn was in our session. We saw it go on there. We thought it was Dawn.
Oh my goodness, that's great.
Yeah, so it's me, Julie, Heather, and Chris. We're together for communication. We found that this was described as communication is really critical for responding to any incident or emergency, but that should come from a variety of perspectives from different stakeholders who bring their own, culture and viewpoints and experiences together so that you can have a positive response. The goal is to have it occur in all phases, before, after, during any type of incident, and that it should be occurring both internally with those that you interact with on a regular basis, and externally who you may rely on and be dependent on, or maybe dependent on you. That communication should also occur. So this is a really important indicator of organizational resilience. We consider this the most important factor. We might be biased, but we don't think so. Because if you can't communicate the needs, you're not really going to gain the results that are needed. So the other two that you developed are reliance upon communication for resilience for the organization. So one of the examples that Heather had shared was, you don't want to build on sand. You really want to have a solid foundation when you're building a house. And that's really the role that communication has. And another example that was provided is this pandemic. We needed to have alternative and backup means and platforms for communicating. Pretty much every type of emergency where it didn't have the desired results, we know that communication is a key factor in that. I've seen that, we've all heard that on the news when there's been active shooter exercise. It's because they didn't communicate, and so people thought it was a real type of incident, and people are calling the cops, calling 911. People are having bad responses because they weren't notified. 9/11, the Capitol riots, other examples. And then Heather had talked about the need for unified command and managing egos. Communication is really key if you want to have that desired result. And then someone had, I think it was Heather, or maybe it was Chris, had suggested a Superman, where it was a C instead of an S. I think that was Heather, so great job there.
Fantastic. Tremendous job, Julie. Thank you so much. Great work, team. I wish we can just hear some applause here. Please, give your kind applause here. Tremendous job and well done. And I'm thrilled to see all the information that you guys have put together. We're going to move on to team coordination. Please take it away.
All right. So team coordination, we talked about, I'll try to go through this quickly here. We talked about coordination being critical for understanding what each other's roles are with clarity and making sure that we're aligning our responsibilities so that everyone is where they need to be. We're not duplicating efforts. This is, being on the same page. And one reason why this is important for it's an important indicator for resilience is that if you really understand what your capabilities are, then you can best utilize those resources in changing circumstances. It's what sort of enables you to be flexible and sort of position things in the best way you can.
Excellent.
Logo. This is Mike's masterpiece here. Thank you, Mike. This is a group of folks sitting around a campfire.
All right.
And Don added the clipboard here. He thought that came to mind in terms of coordinating everybody, checking off the boxes, and then sending everyone on their way. We kind of see this as that important step where I guess in a lot of ways plans become action
Yes.
and folks know what they need to do.
Excellent. Tim, fantastic job. I think coordination is a tough one. That's, but you hit on all the points there, and great creativity. Thank you so much. Last but not least, team collaboration. Please take it away.
Mike, you want to take a stab at this?
I was going to let you, but okay.
All right.
But the definition we came with for collaboration is it's working together. It's basically sort of enhanced cooperation where you actually have skin in the game. You're actually putting resources at each other's disposal. You're trusting each other to do the right thing with your staff and property, that kind of idea.
Great.
Important from a resilience standpoint is, you're sharing those thoughts and ideas. You're also sharing resources. And so you're having more options so you can be more resilient. You aren't in that silo where people are refusing to talk to each other or to cooperate and get things done. The big example that came to my mind with this was Hurricane Katrina. There was a lot of stuff leading up to it that didn't happen, a lot of collaboration that did not happen. And that led to a real tragic situation. And then on a smaller scale, Tim saying it reminded me when I was at the University of Colorado, our international programs folks had some things going on over Christmas break, and it didn't occur to them to reach out to emergency management or the police department to kind of help relieve them because they were having to work so many hours to resolve those incidents. And that's what we're there to do. So we would have loved to have collaborated and helped them. And then it's kind of hard to put collaboration into a symbol, but the idea of a handshake, of close cooperation there. So we went with the handshake.
No, that's a tremendous job. That picture tells the story there. So very good. Excellent. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome, sir.
All right. I'll stop sharing this screen here, Brandy, and then go back. Is that?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I know we're getting into overtime here, but let me get back to the presentation. I think I just had one more slide to share. And let's see. Yeah, that's it. Wanted to say, stay in touch. Thank you so much. I know we've, let me come off the share here. We talked quite a bit today about different things. And I wanted to, again, thank you so much for having the chance to speak to everyone here today. And Terry, Brandy, for your support and help. I had so much fun. I hope you did as well with the that final little group activity. And I hope we can keep the conversation going.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you very much, Dr. Jones. 2 great sessions from you, and we really appreciate that. I want to throw in there that I think Michael's drawing was the best, though. Just want to say, love the little guys around, whatever that was, a fire or something. No, thanks everyone. This was a great session. Tomorrow is the exercise. Get ready for our tabletop exercise, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks again, Dr. Jones.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.